Well, hi there. This is going to be a special video for me. This one goes out to my brother and his new wife. Both their first time getting married, and we wish them all the best. And after a video call, it became clear that they needed some household goods. So I talked with my wife, and she let me pick out a couple of good kitchen knives and means to maintain them. So I went with what I've chosen for ourselves for years. It's America's Test Kitchen, Best Buy all the time. Everybody says wonderful things about them, and they're true. The Victorinox Fibrox Pros are what I picked out for them, paring and chef's knife. And I also got them a Worksharp Benchstone sharpener so that they could maintain them for the entire lifetime of those knives without having to resort to an electric grinder or something else that absolutely rips up the edges and never provides a very good result. Now, other channels have done this topic to death, so this one is more intended for someone who's never sharpened a knife before and just wants a good, reliable kitchen edge. And I'm going to pause it because I forgot something. Just a moment. Okay, and we're back. So I wanted to demonstrate what I consider to be a good working edge for a kitchen knife. There's any number of tests you can do. There's the paper slicing test. Should be nice and clean and crisp, no tearing. This is catalog paper, which is a little tougher than your standard printer paper to cut cleanly. And this is that little tough light from my pocket knife video. As you can see, I try to keep all of mine in pretty darn sharp condition. But the test that I recommend for my wife when she's cooking in the field is using a paper towel on a cutting board. And by in the field, I mean a commercial kitchen, but not at home where I could take care of it, is to simply slice a paper towel on a cutting board. If you get a good clean slice, no ragged edges, no pulling, no tearing across the entire length of the blade, that is a great test of whether or not your knife is in generally good sharp condition. What we're not going to go into is hair whittling edges, how to finely polish and strop. We're not going to get up into anything beyond what the Worksharp can do all on its own. So if you're listening out there, this is for you. I have here a Good Cook brand dollar store knife, never opened, never used. It claims it is high carbon stainless steel, which seems a bit of an oxymoron to me. It tends to be one or the other, but okay. This was a $3 knife. It's not going to be exceptionally well made or have the most uniform steel matrix. It's probably not going to hold an edge for very long. I'm going to say it's junk. But it's great for this demo. I found that these cheaper knives are actually often some of the hardest ones to get a good sharp edge on. I don't know if it comes down to the uniformity or quality of the steel, but I'd rather sharpen S30V than one of these any day. So we will get this guy open. I hate clamshell packaging. Especially that ultrasonic welded stuff. Okay. So here is the brand new, wow, that is very, very light. Shouldn't be this light. Let's see how it passes our test right out of the factory. Not great. And it's slicing into it, but no. Let's see how it does on the catalog paper. Okay. It does not feel particularly clean, and it's hanging up at various places. So I would put this at a fail, personally. But we want to show what this machine can do, Worksharp. So we're going to take this sharpening puck, and the red side is 180 grit. And we're going to purposefully dull this knife to nothing. Now you'll see it's not going anywhere. That thing is flat as can be. Doesn't take much to damage a knife. That's why you want to avoid slamming down on a ceramic plate with a straight edge. That's the primary thing serratids are good for, is dealing with steak knives and things like that, where you'll be banging into a plate, because ceramic is harder than steel and will dull it very, very quickly. So on one side we have the plate labeled 320, and these are diamond coated plates, so they can be used dry. I prefer not to. People will say that you'll get problems with rusting. I've had this for couple of years, I believe, and it is fine. Just dry it afterwards. But it's 320 grit, which is a rough grit. The lower the number, the rougher the grit. And then it rotates and locks in place to a 600 grit, which is the medium grade stone, coming up towards fine. And that's also diamond coated, and you can actually feel the difference in the material there. And then finally, for honing and finishing the edge, there is a ceramic plate. I believe these are considered somewhere in the 1200 grit, but I did not double check that before I got started here. So what these are your angle guides. This is what makes this system easy to use for anyone. You lay the spine of the knife good and flat against the angle guide, and it will put you at the correct angle. Now mine, I've bought the additional 17 degree and 15 degree guides because I don't tend to use 20 degree knives on anything that I'm sharpening with this. 17 is my preferred. Thanks Cedric and Ada. Love that channel. If you haven't seen Cedric and Ada, you should definitely check him out. But you always want to start, unless you just need a touch-up. If it's lost that really sharp edge and you want to just bring it back to a little extra life, then you can go straight to the ceramic. But most of the time, you're going to want to start on the lowest grit you have available and work to the 600 and then the ceramic. Now the theory is what we're going to be doing is removing edge or removing steel from the edge in contact with the stone, of course, and we don't stop until we can feel going downward against the apex, never upward, a little catch on our finger. You can also use a Q-tip or a cotton ball, sometimes even a paper towel, to feel that it's getting caught by the burr of steel that's been raised on the edge you're not sharpening. Once you've got that burr, then you flip over to the other side and proceed to start cutting off that burr, or even pushing it over to the other side. And then you start back and forthing it to weaken that burr, and then move on to finer grits. So for starters, I like to take 1 drop of dish soap in a little bowl of water and just wipe down the surface. We don't want it thick with soap. We just want to create a little surfactant action on top to carry away the steel particles. And what I like to do is keep as many fingers on the stone as I can or on the knife spine as I can manage to help keep even pressure. But all you're going to do is contact the stone with the blade flat on the angle guide and maintain that angle as you slice. You're slicing the stone. You're not using a huge amount of pressure, just enough to keep good firm contact so it's not skating across the stone. And we're following the curve of the blade. So it's not straight all the way across, it's straight as long as the blade is straight and then curving down towards the tip. The other way to do that, and this is really whatever you personally prefer, I believe, is go straight and lift the handle of the knife towards the air until you reach that apex. And that will also follow the curve of the blade. Either way is fine. I've gotten great results either way. So then you can do this fast, you can do this slow. The important thing is to maintain the correct angle. Maybe I'll speed up this footage later. This being a fairly thin and definitely cheap steel, hopefully we can raise a burr pretty quickly. Nothing yet. If you have steadier hands than I, you can go back and forth. If you can be assured in your own head that you are maintaining that angle reference. The important thing is to always get the entire length of your blade, every part of the cutting surface evenly, which is one thing that having your fingers across the entire blade does for you, is it makes sure that you can maintain consistent pressure rather than levering up hard or pressing hard on one part and pressing lightly on the other. Okay, I think we've got it now. And dip a little more sudsy water on there. Now, you can do this with one hand. It's awkward. I've got to say, if you want to find one thing to become ambidextrous at in this life that will help you, sharpening a knife was one of those things. So I'm going to switch to my left hand. And the biggest key I can give you for early success is until the knife feels sharp coming off this roughest stone, it should feel pretty sharp. It shouldn't feel dull, and we'll fix it on higher grit stones. No, it has to be sharp on the lowest stone before you move on. Not usually so awkward at this, but with the camera in the way and the tripod, not the easiest thing in the world. Wow, this is a terrible knife. We're not quite in cursed object territory, but it's close. I wouldn't even donate this to a food shelf kitchen. It's going to be dull and useless pretty quick. Well, not quite there yet. I do find it helpful to stand over the knife as you do this. It's easier to keep your reference angle nice and flat and your pressure even. I just find it helpful. Now, as you feel like you're getting ready to move on, I like to switch to some alternating strokes with lighter pressure than I was using for the main sharpening. Because what we're trying to do here is minimize the size and amount of that burr before we move on to a much finer stone that's going to take a lot longer to sharpen it away. Okay, how are we doing? Well, cutting most of the way through it. So then we just rotate. And do dry these off. Rinse and dry these off with hot water when you're done, if you're using a surfactant like I am. You don't want them to rust. They are steel plates with a nickel coating and the diamonds electroplated to that. Oh, another feature of the Worksharp is this little red button down here, the switch. If you click it to one side, you can pop the assembly free for cleaning, replacement, whatever. And if you click it back, it locks it in place. One of the intended features of leaving it unlocked is to take another element out of the equation by allowing the blade to rock naturally, so you can do a straight stroke without curving yourself, and the stone will come to meet you. So this is an alternate to lifting your hand at the end of the stroke. Instead, the stone is tilting with you. The most important thing about sharpening is consistency. Consistency of angle, developing that burr, then wearing it down and breaking it away, and staying on the lowest grit until it's sharp. It won't be crazy sharp, won't be shaving sharp. It should just feel sharp to your fingertips. That just takes time to develop that feel. But you can always grab a piece of paper and try to slice it and see where you are. Okay. So, we went from dead dull to cleanly slicing some thin catalog paper in just a couple of minutes there. And now we can head on over to our ceramic, and I wet this one down too. When you are ready to clean the ceramic, you can just use simple green. Crud bust or a crud cutter is a great one that's non-toxic and food safe. Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, all those places will have it. And I get a soft nylon bristle brush, just a scrub brush, $1 or $2. This is a Scotch-Brite I picked up from the hardware store. And put on your cleaner. Dawn dish soap and water will work fine too. And then just scrub it. The reason I've got this one labeled whetstone only isn't to protect my stones from whatever would come up in kitchen duties. It's to protect kitchenware from possible contamination from diamond particles, which would easily scratch glass and would probably leave my wife a little unhappy with me. And then once you've scrubbed away, like this will come almost pure white when you first get it. This one's fairly clean. After 5-10 uses, it'll probably be time to give it a little cleaning. And just some soapy water, some crud cutter, some simple green, whatever. Scrub it until it looks clean again. Won't take long. Rinse it off with hot water and then dry it with some paper towels, and it's ready for battle again. Now the ceramic stone, I don't use a lot of pressure on them. I like to do a nice moderate to light stroke. This is more of a finishing stone. We're not trying to remove a lot of material here. We're just trying to polish that edge and cut off that remaining micro burr of steel that's right on the very tip of the apex. The tip of the apex is what does all of your cutting. So if there's a folded over micro piece of metal or a little bit of steel hanging off of it, then it's not going to cut very well until that's gone. And we are removing very, very little material here. But at this stage, this will never replace stropping on leather, but we're refining that apex and making it as clean as possible on this grid of ceramic. And I'm just doing alternating passes because we're finishing here. Okay, that is what I would consider a pretty good clean edge for this level of kitchen knife with no stropping and no polishing phases, just the ceramic cone at the end. I'll get a fresh sheet of paper and we'll see where we are. Okay, so get the Worksharp Benchstone out of the way. Remind myself to dry it when we're done here. We've dried off the edge of our $3 or $4 knife. And we are cleanly slicing thin catalog paper with no hiccups, no ripping, and no stopping. Good. All right, so that's it. I just wanted to do this video to help out my brother and his wife with their new equipment, and hopefully it was helpful to someone else. Again, Outdoors 55, Cedric and Ada, there are other channels that cover this with much better equipment and more skill than myself, but it gets great results for me, and in the end, that's what matters. So thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a great week.